They gave him a peanut and took everything else. Walk into almost any American classroom and ask who George Washington Carver was, and you'll get the same answer every time: the peanut guy. Maybe somebody mentions peanut butter, which he didn't even invent. That's the whole story they hand you. A man born into slavery, one of the most important scientists this country ever produced. A man who could have been a millionaire 10 times over and chose not to be, on purpose. And we reduced him to a snack. Let me decode this for you, because the real George Washington Carver is a story about genius, survival, and a man who looked at the poorest people in America and spent 50 years building them a way out. This is the part they left out. Welcome back to Cypher. I'm Malik, and on this channel we break down the Black history they didn't teach you in school, with names, with dates, with receipts. Today, a man whose name everybody knows and whose actual life almost nobody does. By the end of this video, you'll understand why calling Carver the Peanut Man isn't just incomplete. It's an insult. Let's get into it. George Washington Carver was born into slavery in Diamond, Missouri, best estimate around 1864, in the final months of the Civil War. He never knew his exact birthday. That's what slavery does. It doesn't just steal your labor, it steals the record of your own existence. He was born on a farm owned by Moses Carver, and while George was still an infant, raiders, the kind that roamed the border states during the war, kidnapped him, his mother, and his sister, and sold them off in Kentucky. Moses Carver hired a man to track them down. The only one he got back was George, a sick baby, barely clinging to life. His mother was gone. He never saw her again. So sit with that. Before this man could even walk, he had already lost his mother to slavery, survived a kidnapping, and nearly died. And that's where the story starts. The Carvers raised George after slavery ended. He was a frail, sickly child, too weak for field work, so instead, he wandered the woods and studied plants. The neighbors started calling him the plant doctor because folks brought him their dying gardens and he brought them back to life. He was a child, and already he had the gift. But here's the thing about being a brilliant black child in post-slavery America. Brilliance wasn't enough. The local school wouldn't admit him because he was black. So at 11 years old, George Washington Carver left the only home he knew and started walking, town to town, looking for somewhere, anywhere, that would let a black child learn. Now stop for a second. I need you to really hold on to that image. A child, alone, walking out of his hometown because the schoolhouse door was closed to him. Because everything this man becomes, the professor, the scientist, the legend, he builds it from that, from nothing. Keep that kid in your mind. Here's what he does with it. He moved from place to place, working odd jobs, cooking, laundry, whatever paid, just to put himself through school. He finally earned his high school diploma as a grown man. Most people would have called it there. He was just getting started. He applied to Highland College in Kansas and got accepted until they saw his face. When they realized he was black, they revoked the admission, flat out. He didn't quit, he kept pushing, and he became the first black student admitted to Iowa State Agricultural College. And he didn't just attend, he excelled so completely that after he earned his master's degree, they hired him onto the faculty, the first black faculty member in the school's history. Read that again. A man born enslaved, who didn't know his own birthday, who got turned away from school after school, became a college professor at one of the best agricultural programs in the country, on pure merit, in the 1890s. That alone should be in every textbook. But it's not even the reason he's famous, because in 1896, a letter came that changed everything. The letter was from Booker T. Washington, who was building Tuskegee Institute in Alabama, a school for black students, run by black people, in the heart of the Jim Crow South. Washington wanted Carver to come run the agriculture department. Tuskegee couldn't match Iowa State's pay, its facilities, or its prestige. Carver came anyway. He stayed 47 years. He stayed until he died. To understand what he did there, you have to understand the crisis he walked into. The South had been growing cotton, and only cotton, for generations. Cotton is brutal on soil. It strips the nitrogen right out of the ground. By the time Carver arrived, decades of it had left the land across the South exhausted, dead. And who was farming that dead land? Sharecroppers, overwhelmingly black. Many formerly enslaved or the children of the enslaved, now technically free, but trapped in debt on soil that wouldn't grow enough to feed a family, let alone climb out of poverty. Carver looked at that and saw the science underneath it. His answer was crop rotation. Stop planting cotton year after year. Plant peanuts, sweet potatoes, soybeans, legumes that pull nitrogen out of the air and put it back into the soil. Rotate those with your cotton and the land heals itself. Yields go up. Your family eats. It worked, and here's a number that tells you how big it was. In 1896, when Carver started, the peanut wasn't even officially recognized as a crop in the United States. By 1940, it was one of the 6 leading crops in the country, and number 2 across the entire South. But that success created a brand new problem. Now these farmers had warehouses full of peanuts and sweet potatoes, and no market to sell them in. Carver had healed the land. Now he had to create a reason for it to pay off. So he walked into his lab. This is where the Peanut Man legend comes from, but watch how much bigger it actually is. Carver started experimenting, and he engineered demand out of thin air. From the peanut, he developed somewhere around 300 products, not just food, dyes, plastics, wood stains, soap, cosmetics, medicinal oils, paper, even a pomade for your hair. Hundreds of uses pulled out of a crop that used to be considered livestock feed. From the sweet potato, over 100 more. Flour, vinegar, molasses, even the glue for postage stamps. But understand why. This wasn't a man chasing novelty. Every one of these products was a potential income stream for a poor black farmer. He was building an entire economy from the ground up so the people working that healed soil could survive on it. Now, let me clear up the myth, because we deal in receipts here. Carver did not invent peanut butter. A Canadian pharmacist patented a version of it in 1884. 12 years before Carver even got to Tuskegee, people had been grinding peanuts into paste for centuries. So when somebody tells you Carver invented peanut butter, correct them. The truth about him is more impressive than the myth anyway. Here's the detail I want you to walk away remembering. Of all those hundreds of discoveries, 300 peanut products, 100 plus from sweet potatoes, George Washington Carver filed only 3 patents in his entire life. 1 for cosmetics, 2 for paints and stains. That's it. He gave the rest away, free, on purpose, and he told us exactly why. In his own words, "I don't want any discoveries to benefit specific favored persons. I think they should be available to all peoples." Think about that. He could have patented even a fraction of his work and died one of the wealthiest scientists in America. Corporations would have paid him fortunes. Instead, he looked at his discoveries the way he looked at everything, as something meant to lift up the people who needed it most. He refused to lock his genius behind a paywall when the whole point was to help poor farmers eat. That's not naivety, that's a philosophy. In a country that had enslaved him, denied him school, and tried to bury his name, he chose to give freely to everyone. And he took the science to them directly. He built what he called the Jessup wagon, a mobile classroom on wheels, and rolled it into the countryside to teach farmers who could never make it to Tuskegee. He didn't wait for the people to come to the knowledge, he brought the knowledge to the people. By the end of his life, the boy who didn't know his own birthday was advising presidents, testifying before Congress, and corresponding with Gandhi about agriculture and nutrition. Thomas Edison reportedly tried to hire him for serious money, and Carver said no, because the work at Tuskegee mattered more. And here's what makes him a man ahead of his time. Everything he preached, crop rotation, soil conservation, getting the most from the land without destroying it, that's regenerative agriculture, sustainable farming. He was teaching it decades before there was a movement with a name for it. When he died in 1943, he gave his life savings to start a foundation to continue the research, and Franklin Roosevelt declared his childhood home a national monument, the first national park site in this country dedicated to an African American, not a president, not a general, a black scientist born into slavery. So let's get this straight. One more time, George Washington Carver was not the Peanut Man. He was a scientist who survived slavery, kidnapping, and a country that told him no at every turn. and who looked at the poorest, most abandoned people in America, stuck on dying land, and spent half a century engineering them a way to live. The peanuts were never the point. The peanuts were just the tool. They gave him a snack and took the rest. Our job is to give it back. If you learned something today, like this video, subscribe to Cypher, and drop a comment with one thing about Carver you were never taught in school. I read everyone. Black history is American history. And next week, we're decoding another story they tried to keep from you. I'm Malik. This was Cypher. Know your history.
They told us power was something you owned, but real power is something you learn. Black minds, infinite power.